It has been brought to my attention that due to my illness, I assumed I'd made a video about Crystal Palace winning the FA Cup. It turns out I had completely forgotten to do it. So excuse the unusually poor timing of this video, because in no way is what Crystal Palace accomplished not worth a video. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't know. I did not know how much this FA Cup final mattered to Crystal Palace, because I assumed, I think as much as so many other people might have assumed, that at some point in their history, much like Sunderland's FA Cup in the early 1970s, they had won something. You know, way back before, I don't want to say anybody cared, but anybody now was necessarily paying attention, that they had won a trophy. More similar to a Newcastle situation, where back in the mists of time they'd won, and this is the first time in 50 years that they're winning anything, and so it's really exciting for that reason. I did not know, going into this FA Cup final, that a team that has been in the top flight for more than a decade, and to me is pretty, synonymous with Premier League football, right? They're a team that, in my mind, they're supposed to be in the Premier League. They belong in the top flight of England. It'd be weird if they weren't there. It would be weird to see them anywhere but in the top flight of England. A team like that had never won a trophy. I didn't know. I had no idea. And while everybody's off celebrating the fact that Tottenham won the Europa League and ended a 17-year trophy drought, and I detailed in that video why that's a big deal, because they have bigger, better facilities than Crystal Palace. They have higher expectations. They have generally better quality players, while Crystal Palace has turned mid-table into an art form, which honestly isn't the worst thing ever. I would argue it's far from the worst thing ever. Who the hell would you rather be? If you're Crystal Palace, I think you got two options. You're either battling against relegation or you're not. And they've gone with not more often than not. And maybe at some point you're finally able to get a team that's able to break through and do something. And well, let me tell you, they did that. They did it. Beautiful. Wonderful. The type of scenes that you want to see in Wembley. But there was such a contrast in this game. Right? Manchester City felt like they were playing this game much like Tottenham and Manchester United were playing the Europa League final. They felt like they were playing for survival. Like if they failed in this game, that the entire season was going to go down as a loss. Right? Because to be perfectly honest, that's probably true. Right? This is their last shot at a trophy. Everything else has failed. They didn't defend their title. And now what are we going to do? Now we're just sitting here twiddling our thumbs waiting for an FA Cup final that, by the way, they also lost last year. So salty taste in Manchester City's mouth that they're trying to evict after getting upset. They got upset last year by Manchester United and Eric Ten Hag, right? If you remember that feels like 3 lifetimes ago, but that was the last FA Cup. So Manchester City had a lot of reasons to be desperate and to go after this game. And yet Crystal Palace came in and played, I would say, exactly the game that it wanted to play. Exactly. Now, if Oliver Glasner was drawing this up on a whiteboard, I don't think he could have designed a better game for Crystal Palace to play. Right? Because Manchester City, they love to boa constrict you. And they wear you down, and eventually they find their opportunities. I mean, sometimes they can strike early, and then the game turns into a snowball where you never even see the ball. But Crystal Palace was able to find that kind of beautiful, fluid, quick punch, quick strike offense and an early goal. And I mean, how you beat anybody is an early goal. I hate those analysts or whatever that say, well, they really want to score an early goal here. Like, every team ever doesn't want to score an early goal in the match, right? But the way to really beat Manchester City is to get that early goal and then not have to worry about getting another one. Being able to set up your structure in a way where you are not providing openings, where you are basically buoyed morally, physically. You got an extra lung because you got an extra goal. You're up 1-0. I mean, if you were designing a way to win the game for Crystal Palace, this would have been the way to do it. And to be, and look, Ange Postecoglou's getting a lot of credit, so I wanted to pull something out from Oliver Glasner, the coach of Crystal Palace, who said this after the last time they played against Manchester City.
Yes, I said to Pep afterwards, if we meet again, you can't play in this system because we will solve it.
Why is he getting no credit for that? That goes hard as hell. He called his shot. This is Babe Ruth pointing in the stands and then hitting the ball right over there. This is Ange Postecoglou in September saying, I always win things in my second season. Let me correct myself. I always win things. He said, look, I told Pep, if you play that same system again, we're going to figure it out. And he did. He designed a beautiful quick strike move to create a goal. And then after that, designed a defense to limit Manchester City in this game. Of course, there was one very dramatic moment. I'm not going to ignore it. Right? The Dean Henderson handball. Now, Dean Henderson played an absolutely brilliant game. But this is a handball. Every day, twice on Sunday. The only question, obviously, but I'd say the only question for me in this situation is whether this amounts to a red card for a denial of an obvious goal-scoring opportunity. And it went to VAR, and they decided that it was not the denial of an obvious goal-scoring opportunity. I think that this exposes a flaw in VAR. I think this it's not necessarily Dean Henderson's fault here, right? It takes if you watch it particularly from the side, it takes a brutal bounce. It kind of spins back. If it was spinning the other way when it lands that next time, you can see after it lands, he realizes he's going to have to swat it. And then he does swat it away because you want to force him to make a decision. But as a goalkeeper, you're doing something wrong here. I mean, he kind of hits it with one of those. VAR can't give a yellow and a free kick. I would have given a yellow card and a free kick for this. Because generally, I believe, particularly early in a final, I don't want to give a red card unless somebody is being endangered or unless it's unbelievably obvious. And I don't believe this is unbelievably obvious and nobody's being endangered. This isn't a studs up challenge. This isn't rolling an ankle. This isn't leg into the side of a knee, right? This is, And so I would have given a yellow card and a free kick, and I think that the people in the VAR room would have probably agreed with that. But the problem is VAR can only give a red card or nothing. And so VAR gives nothing. Now, do we want to open a whole can of whoop-ass of VAR being able to actually assign yellow cards and free kicks? Probably not. In this situation, it would be nice to have VAR go, you know what? That's a stern yellow and put the ball there and let's play. But here's the thing. If they had given a red card for this, could you really make a super compelling argument that this isn't an obvious goal-scoring opportunity? I mean, there are a couple of defenders in the area. It's not like this touch is going to go into the back of the net. This isn't Luis Suarez actually saving the ball here. Right, but if this is given as a red, I don't think anybody's going to be making a super compelling argument against it being a red card. But this is the fate on which football matches can turn. Right? This is the hinge point of history. Because Dean Henderson then goes on to have this amazing game and gets in an argument with Pep Guardiola after the match, and he's absolutely ripping and roaring, and he ends up at the post-match party with an all-time chant that I just have to play. Great. And to me, that sums this entire thing up, right? They have spent years, a decade, being the team that finishes in 12th. And now, after all of that, playing matches towards the end of a season that don't matter, not dreaming of European nights, not feeling the burn of the fires of hell of relegation, just existing, enjoying life in the Premier League, playing the big teams, having magical moments within games. They finally got to this point, and they got to celebrate. And these are the videos that move me the most. Honestly, these were the videos that moved me the most because you can imagine how many games these people have been to. How many away days, how many times they've sat around the TV lamenting the fact that they can't string wins together. How many times they've stuck with their club. The club that everybody else thought was boring, that would never have a moment like this. that would inevitably get relegated after finishing 12th or whatever for 8 straight seasons between 41 and 49 points, that had never won a trophy ever. This is, one of the few instances that you can look through the entire crowd, right? Every single person in the stands wearing Crystal Palace colors and say with confidence they've never seen Crystal Palace win a major trophy ever, because it had never happened. Look, Tottenham's moment was magic for a lot of people, and a lot more people knew that lore. But to me, Crystal Palace might be even more special, because even though they weren't a meme, they were. They were the mid-table team that nobody cared about. They were the wallpaper of the Premier League. And even the wallpaper gets its day. And I, for one, am really happy for the wallpaper, even if it's like some sort of creepy floral design. So full credit for Crystal Palace, FA Cup champions. It is going to be an absolute joy to see you in the Europa League. And hey, dare to dream. Tottenham did.